Hello and welcome to Talking Point today. It's Monday morning and the equity markets are looking buoyant, and that's the talking point of today's session, isn't it? The kind of bounce that we've had from the lows in a COVID era, and what could that imply? Is it that the markets are moving on the basis of cheap liquidity and therefore there's no telling where this will stop? Or is there a stark disconnect between the economic reality and the markets which will get corrected soon? Picture this, viewers. Look at 2008, look at the current scenario. 2008 was the last comparable event, wasn't it? And that year, we've used this set of graphics before about how there were bounces, about 3 or 4 bounces, which were large. And then they got sold into an overall downtrend of 60%. So the graphic tells you, isn't it? I mean, 3 or 4 times that this happened in 2008, 16 July to 11th August, which was an 18 trading day period, we had a 21% bounce. 27th October to 10th November, a 10 trading day period, 25% bounce. Now, compared it to what's happened from the closing lows that we had on the 23rd of March, which was about 7710, to the current levels or levels as of Friday. I mean, this has been a massive gain, isn't it? I mean, just look at that chart and that tells you a story. But it's about 33% bounce from those lows. The question is, can this last? What should you as an investor do in a scenario like this? To answer that, a pretty important guest, somebody who looks at these markets, who's looked at the markets for the last number of years, and his perspective would be very, very important. Krishna Kumar Karwa, Johnson right now, needs no introduction, really. Krishna, so good having you. Thanks much for taking the time out.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. Touch wood, all safe thus far as the economies open up. But that's the question, Krishna. What's your sense of this mammoth bounce that we've had? Is it a resurrection of a really steep gash that we had, or is it some sentiment and liquidity-driven rally that we're seeing right now?
I think, Neeraj, what happens is that the reality is somewhere always in between. In March, when the pandemic had just started, was at its peak maybe in the Western world, and it had just picked up in India. So the panic was very high from the Western world. You would have seen the kind of sell-off which happened from the FIIs, and we corrected almost 40% in less than 15-20 trading sessions. But now the narrative is changing. The Western world is opening up. Our economy is also opening up. And we have now seen almost 70, 80 days of lockdown and now opening up. The kind of cases which have come up, the total number, and the fatalities. At the end of the day, what is important to see is the fatalities. So people in India, or generally across the world, have understood the severity of the pandemic, how bad it is in terms of deaths, etc. And economies are opening up. So what we are seeing now is more of a relief rally. Also, the amount of liquidity which the US Fed, the ECB, the Japanese Central Bank, and China have pumped into the system, that is also having its impact. So what we have seen in the last 10-15 trading sessions in India also is a sense of relief that the country is finally opening up. The severity of the pandemic, no doubt it's too early, but seems that it will not be as bad as it was thought to be. And hopefully, as every month, as the economy improves, I think the May numbers, probably the June will be better than May and July will be better than June. That is the expectation. So what we have seen in the last 10-15 trading sessions is basically a belief in the companies itself, which is that, okay, FY21 could be a muted year, could be a washout year, but can FY22 be, or do the companies which have the robust balance sheets and the wherewithal, can they survive? So I think it's more of balance investing which is happening currently rather than its P&L. Sentiment is positive, liquidity is there, so they have aided in the rally.
Okay. Can you explain that liquidity part? Because a lot of people get confused about how India is not really doled out any major stimulus. From the central bank as well, there have been, the central bank action has been probably more pronounced than the government action, the fiscal action, but still not in comparison to the rest of the world. So how does that liquidity stimulus measures in the US, Japan, etc., that you all speak about, have an impact on the Indian markets? A lot of people would be confused about that. Would be great to get your perspective.
See, what happens is that finally, what the amount of liquidity which has been pumped by the US Fed, ECB, etc., in their economies, ultimately it flows into the system over there. And finally, it's going to go into the various savings accounts of people. And investments will go into the EM funds, etc. So some part of it is going to come to the global markets. Also, as those economies revive, their consumption move up, etc., your business environment also improves. So broadly, if you see in the month of March, we had almost 50, 60,000 crores of FII selling. And now what have we seen in the last 10, 15 trading sessions? No doubt driven by some of the big blocks, etc. But still some 40, 45,000 crores of FII buying, FPI buying has happened in the last 10, 15 trading sessions. So this is purely opportunities to invest in the country. So it's very micro based kind of investing. It's not macro. But having said that, yes, it has aided the global excess liquidity which is being there in the system has aided the opportunities for blocks to be placed. So that is what I am referring to as far as the global liquidity flowing, trickling into the emerging market funds, and some of it also coming to India. As far as the question that you raised about domestic liquidity, I think our bank, central bank, has been different in terms of how they have helped revive the economy. Our government has been different. Ours is more of indirect kind of financing, where MSMEs, etc., have been provided guarantees for loans, etc. So it's more supply side driven than direct money into the hands of businesses, etc. So ours is a different environment. But having said that, once that banking system liquidity flows into the MSMEs, etc., over the next 2-3 months, it will finally flow into enhanced demand, and finally the money will come into the system in terms of how business move, and then it will come finally into the equity markets also. But that will be slightly long drawn. Currently, what we are seeing is more FII, FPI driven kind of an environment. The global markets have almost reached the same level as what they were at the beginning of the year. And we are still some 15-17% away from our January opening. So still some more we have underperformed, and hopefully we should be able to cover up that also.
So you reckon 12,000 will come before 8,000? I mean, that's a common poll that is being done. I'm not saying 8,000 will come, but you reckon that higher probability of moving up?
My sense is that this will be determined more by how our recovery, this pent-up demand that we are seeing, is it one-time kind of a this thing, or it sustains? Now, if we believe that every month will be a better month than the earlier month, then there is a distinct possibility that we would be going up gradually. I think the fear is that when the first quarter numbers come out in the month of August, that time the real red on the balance sheets, etc., would be seen. How the last 3 months of non-working of companies for 1 month, 1.5 months, poor demand, etc., how it pans out. I have a feeling that investors will recognize that this is a one-off, and if they see the ground level situation improving by the month, they will ignore. By that time, you would also see the economic recovery settling in maybe the Western world also. So if we have some support from the Western economies, our also monsoons, etc., pan out well, then there is no reason why 1 year down the line we should be positive than where we are today.
Will the large or will the big ones become bigger, Krishna? I mean, there were 2 or 3 anecdotes, right? The SBI numbers and the commentary and the display suggest that they have indeed grown bigger. I was reading an article on PTI which suggested that HDFC Bank in an online customer acquisition drive opened some 2.5 lakh accounts in a single day. Are we looking at the big ones getting bigger? And would you bet on large caps versus mid caps? That's the large question.
My sense is that there will be a polarization because disruption will impact more the smaller guys in the system, the guys who are financially weak, technologically weak, etc. So you will see that the benefit, or rather the ability to survive and grow, even in a shrinking market, would be for the larger players in the system. There is no doubt about that. We have seen that happening and we will continue to see that. So whoever is agile and whoever is technologically ahead of the curve, he will be able to grow. But having said that, in terms of, I think large cap versus small cap versus mid caps, I think be a small cap because of the size of the industry it is in. It may be a leader in that small industry segment where it is.
Yeah.
Say that one should look at investing in small cap, mid cap, large cap should be a function of the individual balance sheets. And if they enjoy a leadership position and if the demand situation of those companies you feel robust, then you should be looking to invest. Ideally, you should be looking at that you are investing in the top 2, 3 companies of whichever segment that you choose to invest in. I don't think so. Large caps or mid caps or small caps is the right way to look at it. It's more about leadership and the underlying balance sheet strength of these companies.
Okay, so underlying balance sheet strength. And we'll talk about some of those as well, Krishna. But just one first, the newsmakers, right? The big newsmakers of it. I don't want to comment on specific stocks per se. I'm using them as illustrative examples. I mean, what Jio is being able to do shows that for individual names there is large appetite, right? 98,000 crores raised. Their market cap is almost equal to or higher than 3 large private sector banks. It's a display of show of strength at a point of time when the world was gasping. What do you make of this response that a platform like Jio is getting?
See, I think it's a clear-cut vindication that if you go back in last 4, 5 years, when the investments in telecom were being made by Jio, the amount of investment that was being made, analysts or the investor community couldn't even justify in terms of possible revenue, etc., and how these investments will finally deliver returns. But I think the vision of the management over there is clearly reflective. That is what is being bought into by the international tech majors and other private equity funds. So I think the whole opportunity in terms of it's not only about offering telecom access, but it's more about the platform itself in terms of the various businesses which can be onboarded, including payments, including e-commerce, maybe tomorrow, healthcare, education, etc. So it's clear-cut a vindication of what this platform can deliver in a economy which is expected to grow very well in the coming years, which is in terms of digitalization is improving by the day. So I think it's all about the vindication of the vision. And if I remember correctly, I think investors have paid almost 2 times price to book. Whatever investment was made and whatever enterprise value today is almost 2 times. So which is a clear-cut reflection about the opportunity that this sector provides. And this is the way I think that for Indians, I think this is the only platform which offers you cutting edge opportunity to invest in a cutting edge business, which is say 10 years ahead of the curve.
Well, and viewers, remember, this is not a stock-specific conversation, but talking about Reliance is almost akin to talking about a sector right now or a very new developing theme, and therefore this conversation. Krishna, what about some of the globally linked spaces? And I want to talk about 2 of them. First, start off with pharma, because it was right in the limelight. Just that this risk-on rally in the last few days, if I can use that term, has put pharma in a bit of a back burner. The stocks have kind of taken a bit of a back seat, consolidating, etc. What are your thoughts on the sector? Is it now at the start of a multi-year business growth because of all the developments that have happened, or you wouldn't read that far?
See, if you look at pharma companies' performances, I think it's not only about what has happened in the last few quarters. That could be more relevant from a stock price perspective. But for the last 4, 5 quarters, the performances have been steadily improving. Generic space, etc., pricing, etc., the corrections which were happening had stabilized. Our Indian pharma part of the business was always stable. I think this pandemic have only increased the focus on the sector. That is what has happened. But having said that, there has been a spate of approvals for various pharma companies, their units which were under US observation, US FDA observations, etc. So my point is that I think after a 4 to 5 year kind of consolidation, corrections, etc., every individual company seems to be now making a good comeback, and which is what the market is reflecting in terms of the price appreciation which many of these stocks have seen in the last 3-4 months. I wouldn't think that this is only a one-time one-time opportunity. My sense is now we are getting into 3-4 year kind of a cycle where not only pharma but healthcare and diagnostics, the whole chain will attract investor attention. I think it will also be led by, after whatever has happened in the pandemic in the last 5-6 months, there will be enhanced government intervention across the globe in terms of improving the healthcare infrastructure. So, and people awareness also will be very high. So generally, there would be more opportunities for companies in the chain.
Okay. Okay. The other one is, of course, metals. And viewers, there's this wonderful chart which shows how the metal index, when it hits cyclical lows, typically tends to do well. Now, on the 20th of May, we wrote a small piece about why these sectors seem to be in that space. Krishna, my question is this. With the economies opening up, do you reckon that the demand for some of the base commodities could inch up? And does this space, cyclical as it is, give any kind of opportunities, or would you rather recommend to stick to the tried and tested?
See, metals is always a global play. A and B, all metal companies are normally reasonably well leveraged. So yes, there are 2-3 things which, according to what we understand, is happening. One is obviously the amount of liquidity which is being pumped into the system by various global majors, global countries, etc. There will be some amount of infrastructure spending which will happen, primarily driven from China. That will create its own demand for various metals. One is that. And we have seen some of the metal prices rising because of that also. Second is that in some of the non-ferrous metals, I think aluminium, the prices have come off to such a low levels that many 50-60% of the smelters now are unviable. My sense is that either those smelters will come off or rather they will have to shut down, or you would see some aluminium prices moving up. So point is that there is a risk-on rally which is there, A, led by the opportunity itself, and B, looking at the way the prices of some of these metals have reached. So there would be some uptick happening. And we are already seeing first signs of that in some of the global metal stocks. And some part of it is also flowing into our country. Having said that, it is always a global trade for average investors. I mean, it's very difficult to be able to time entry exits. So typically, you invest on more on a price to book kind of a basis, and you trade in and trade out because the movements are very swift.
Okay, pertinent point. Let me then ask you, what is it that you think works for you? Or the last, I mean, it's been a while that we've spoken. In the last 1.5 to odd months, is there something that you've read or you observed that has fascinated you from a business or a company or a sector perspective or a stock perspective as well? I mean, maybe 1 or 2 anecdotes would really help.
So as I said in the beginning itself, is that we tend to go to extremes. So when in March, I think we had extrapolated the end of the world. And today we are extrapolating that everything will be hunky-dory and recovery will be very fast. So if you speak to corporates, etc., they are not, I mean, they are hopeful, but they don't have ground level realities to explain to you in terms of how the recovery will happen. So if you see none of the corporates have given any guidance for FY21, and rightly so. So the learning always has been that every time, whenever there is a global crisis of any form, we don't look at, okay, what can be the solution? And we tend to make the worst of observations, or rather we make the most pessimistic of forecasts. So it is always the near term which impacts the way we think in terms of a few years down the line. When the going is good, it is equally so that we are willing to expect the best to happen in the next 2-3 years. So the reality is always in between. So that's a observation that always now when the rally is there from 7,500 to 10,000, so we see the same people who are not willing to give any benefit of doubt to companies becoming very positive. So sometimes the stock market prices determines the observations in terms of economy. Second observation that I would like to share is that it is good to know the macros. It's good to know how GDP is going to behave, etc., or expectations. It's good to know how interest rates. But ultimately, what we are investing in is specific companies. So it is micro investing which is very important rather than just getting focused on macros. If you go back and see in when the ILFS crisis happened, so obviously the NBFC sector was hit. But if you would have sold each and every NBFC stock, then there were some blue chips also which made a massive comeback and delivered stellar returns after that. So it's good to know the macro, but finally it is all about micro investing, looking at individual companies. If one would have followed that theory, then already 40, 50, 60% returns have been made in some of the stocks in the last 45 days. So that's my basic learning, which has got reiterated during this last 3 months, that it's important to know the macros, but finally it is the micro focus on company fundamentals which finally pays off. Also, I think during the course of these last few months, we have seen some of the companies, the level of disclosures that they have done is phenomenal. I mean, that just shows the confidence that the companies, I can't name the company, but a few companies you can really figure out that the level of transparency in terms of how the business environment is, how they are impacted, and what they believe is going to be the future, or rather how they are every month or whatever. I think that really shows that this is the company to invest in whenever you think that a time is right. At least the transparency is very high, the willingness to accept the situation, to share, to share the with the investors. So I think that determines this is the time when you really know which are the companies which are going to be able to stand up in the times to come.
And you reckon that all of this has happened across sizes, right? I mean, there are small companies which have probably stood up to this test, and there are large companies which have done equally good as well, right? It's market cap agnostic.
It's market cap agnostic. It is just about the inherent corporate governance structures of those companies. They may be small, they may be big. It doesn't matter. But it is the DNA of those companies, and that is why they are the leaders, or they are among the top 2, 3 of the sectors that they are in. And some of the companies also, they may be big, but they may duck the questions also. They may not share the right information, etc., or rather keep it as under wraps as possible. But I think some of the companies have been very good. It was a need of the hour in terms of the uncertainty which was there in the environment. And we are already seeing that these companies have delivered good returns to the investors in the last few months.
Yeah. I just have one last question, Krishna, and that is on who will emerge victorious between the micro and the macro currently, because we all know that at least one quarter is lost, and nobody knows as you said, the companies also don't have an idea of what the consumer behavior will be. So it's a bit of a guesstimate. But let's assume the consumer doesn't bounce back in India in the same way that it is bouncing back in the US, because there have been job losses, salary cuts, etc. Do you think that uh, the bottom-up theory at these levels would still yield results? Because at 7,500, the valuations were a lot different and a lot better. They're no longer as mouth-watering as they were at 7,500. What do you think wins here on? The macro reality of economic disruption that we've had, or liquidity and micro?
So as you said, it's going to be a difficult call. I mean, this is not going to be a straight line kind of a recovery. There will be bouts of pessimism, optimism, volatility in the market. The right way to address this situation is to buy the pessimism and sell the optimism. So currently, as we talk, the optimism levels are increasing. This is not the right time to buy into stocks. I mean, on a macro basis, if you're saying, yeah, you have to be careful, you have to be vigilant in what are you buying into. So having said that, my point is that at any point of time, if the underlying valuations you feel are comfortable, then you should be buying into the stock. Forget the sentiment at that point of time. So I would hardcore believe that it is the micro investing which is going to work, bottoms up investing which is going to work. Macro is good to know, but ultimately we are not buying the indices, we are buying individual stocks. But I think you will get opportunities in the next 6 months. There will be volatility globally and locally. So I think you should keep space for averaging your investments, keep some gunpowder dry.
Okay, lots of wisdom in those last two answers, as also the previous ones. But Krishna, take a moment to thank you for joining in today. It's a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. And viewers, thanks for tuning into this edition of The Talking Point.
Shabash.